Okay.
It says recording.
We are recording.
Do it.
We're recording.
Let's go.
We got the lawn clap.
Let's do it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of Midnight Movie Distillery. I'm one of your hosts, Logan Lynch.
I'm another one of your hosts, Warwick Price.
And I'm Lon Black. I just come here for fun.
He's just here for the alcohol.
Yes.
I'm the one who brings the alcohol.
What movies?
I am the alcohol.
What movie are we going to discuss today?
Yeah,
Mr.
So
Warwick.
This one
Tokyo.
is Tokyo Gore Police. A
TGP
very
to the layperson.
bloody. Well, let's just say the title of the movie really does it justice. So, as well as obviously reviewing the movies at this point, hopefully you've watched all of our previous episodes. But just in case you haven't, what else do we do on Midnight Movie Distillery?
We pair it with a whiskey. Let me get it.
He is in a hurry for us to try the whiskey.
All right, little story. We're going to try to throw some of these up on the shorts. It may be, actually, you may be seeing those shorts before you watch this one. But
we call them teasers.
Logan and I went to the World of Whiskeys in downtown Chicago.
I had to work.
And sampled a ton of liquor.
I learned a lot.
And we actually sampled this one there. So, and of course it's Japanese horror. We gotta get into the Japanese whiskey thing. So this is Hatozaki.
Oh, Hatozaki.
And Hatozaki, we're gonna get canceled.
Where'd the Asian accent come from?
Where's camera 2? There we go. Yeah, I'll put it back here so you can see it.
Hatozaki. Next to a bottle of water.
Are you trying to do it so they can read the label?
I'll do. Yes.
Okay.
So we actually sampled this one. I won't say what we thought of it, but because
honestly,
you don't know,
we
what
did so much that day. I don't know if I remember. I'll know it once I taste it.
Okay, so I went back.
Will you?
And reviewed some of the video. There's the.
It's a very finely printed.
There's the bourbon
box.
again. Am I close? Am I too far?
There you go.
Or, it's not a bourbon. It's a whiskey. So here's.
Actually, sorry. It looks very yellow.
Yes,
it does.
It is very light in color
on that camera.
So let me get into this. This, if you look on their website and look on any of the stuff they've got on their boxes and marketing stuff, this is a whiskey, not a bourbon.
Okay.
It is modeled after Scotch whiskeys.
Okay.
In, as they say, in tribute to the originators of the spirit.
Okay.
Which I'm sure is just Scotch whiskey, not necessarily all whiskey.
Right.
Meaning it's 100% malt. Now, this is also small batch. Small batch typically means, they don't specify, but small batches typically be less than 100 barrels. Unless it was that Wolf Point, which was 1 barrel, as micro as you can get. But they do not color a damn thing.
Right.
Good.
They are not from virgin oak casks. These are old
Slutty. Sorry.
Scotch.
They've seen a lot of action.
Old Scotch casks.
Why are they salty?
So what that means is the Scotch had the original charred virgin oak, American oak.
Yep.
And then when they were done with them, they sold them. So therefore, there's less color in that wood left.
Oh.
Got it.
Right? So there's not as much to draw out of the wood. It still draws out flavor. It still draws out, from that malt there. There's no peat smoke in this either, like they do in Scotland. But because it was from a Scotch barrel, they say there's still that little bit of smoke.
Do they add anything? We've talked in other episodes about like adding staves that give like a certain flavor.
Correct, a finish or something.
Do they add anything to it?
Nothing on this one. Nothing on a small batch. So this is the small batch. There is the original that's not small batch. And I will say this, we did try it. It was not good.
Okay.
This is the small batch, as I've said probably about 3,000 times, which means it's a little bit more selective, a little bit more refined. It is around, I think it was 3 to 5 years old.
Okay.
And it is a blend, so it's not a, Oh, there we go. Oh, I didn't do it right. Let me try that again. Sorry,
do it by
people.
the mic.
Sorry, people. Here we go.
People like that.
There we go.
That's good. That's some good popping.
Okay,
Right
now keep in mind for what it is. It's a Japanese whiskey modeled after Scotch whiskey. So just keep that in mind. This is not an American bourbon. This is not an American whiskey.
I smell.
You can
a
smell Scotch.
Scotch.
Right. You can smell
I mean,
Scotch.
That's kind of crazy.
I honestly, I get almost like wine.
Okay, that's fair enough because typically now we're talking a lighter wood, so a little bit more of that malt will come out as opposed to some of the oak that's in there.
Okay.
Or so I think.
I'm
Let's
glad,
try
I'm
this
glad
one.
we all glossed over the lighter wood.
Well, it is light, and it's not just light; it's an unpleasantly light color.
Really?
I mean, it looks
Do you
yellowy
think
and
does that-
sickly.
Is that
and-
just more of a like a because you see it sort of like
glass
how what is it like Skittles? They're all the same flavor, but just
You
because you
gotta
see different colors.
You got
it's-
to taste the rainbow.
I don't think.
Thanks.
I mean, I guess that's psychological to a certain point. That's why, if it's not dark enough, a lot of Scotch or whiskey manufacturers will color it so
you
it
getting
looks
that
more
now?
pleasant.
No. I don't want to. I just tried to sniff the microphone.
You're like, what did we have last time?
that won't work.
Okay.
All right, let's taste it and rate it.
I still smell Scotch.
Yeah. Now I'm getting more Scotch.
It's a Scotch recipe, but there's no smoke beat.
One thing I forgot is paper towels. Wow.
Remember,
Oh yeah. Sorry.
loose lips sink ships.
Loose lips drinks.
Drinks whiskey. Great rhyme.
Loose lips spreads legs. No.
Reverse that.
Okay.
Yes. There you go. Yeah, that's true.
Sorry.
All right, pull out some numbers here.
Oh. All right.
Why do these look like they got wet?
The moisture. when it
I was saying the
warm up here.
humidity.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
maybe.
humidity and
It's
moisture.
the
up here.
Canadian smoke.
Canadian smoke. Okay.
In a minute.
Okay, are you ready? We're still deciding. Sorry, those people who are listening to us and not
Oh,
watching
yeah,
us,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
who
Lots,
are
lots
bored
of
off their
silence.
ass going, what the
Lots of silence.
The heck.
All right, you ready?
The silence is golden.
Are you ready, Logan?
I think I am.
All right, 1, 2, 3, hui! Asokata.
Did I do it
Did I
right?
get it
Yes, I got
Yep.
it right on the
Oh my
first
god,
try.
no, I got it wrong.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. So
Did I?
I gave it a 3.2. Warwick?
I gave it a 2.5.
Logan.
I gave it a 2. I
2.5.
wanted to give it a 3.
Yeah.
I wanted to.
Then give it a
was-
fucking
I was
3.
on the fence.
Yeah.
I really was.
If we had a 7 in here,
So
2.7.
to me, I taste its Scotch roots, and I'll say roots because it's
Yeah.
clearly not made in
Yeah.
Scotland, but it follows a Scottish recipe. The person who developed this went to Scotland to learn how to make whiskey from the Scots. They talk about how much they want to do it like a Scotch. They didn't smoke the they didn't smoke the grain and with malt. With peat like they do out in Scotland, and the casks are a little weaker, but it's like a light Scotch.
Right, and it's funny because I think it's the peat kind of taste is I think really what I'm missing more than the smoky
The smoke.
taste.
I get a little bit of smoke in there.
Yeah.
It's got to be from the barrel.
I just like the smoothness.
It is pretty smooth.
Definitely
The first one's a
smoother
little
than I was-
hot.
Because I don't like Scotch because of the
I think
harshness, but this was actually,
right.
yeah.
So do you remember it from the show?
After I had the first sip, I was like, yeah, I do remember
Yeah.
this one.
Okay.
But now, the one we had was not small batch, though, right?
It was the
It
small
was?
batch.
It wasn't small?
That's the
Okay.
one I took because I took a picture of it to
Okay,
make
so
sure.
then it was good.
Because I do remember tasting one and not liking it.
Yes.
So I think that was the original Hatozaki, but the small
And then
batch.
That's
was
when the lady
good.
brought out the small batch,
Yes.
right? Okay, now I remember. Yeah,
Yes,
that
'cause
was
she
the
was
good one.
just inside the doors to the bigger area, and we
Yep.
were kind of there, and we're like, we want to go to the Scotch, and she talked to us for a long time, so we missed out on some Scotch. But
Yeah.
still, I think it's pretty good.
I like it.
For a Japanese entry, our first Japanese whiskey, really, but for Japanese entry level in here, I think it's good. Is it the best Scotch, is it the best whiskey ever? No. But I think it's pretty good. I wouldn't mind sipping some of this on a summer day with a little bit of water, maybe an ice cube.
So now, it's spelled Whisky, correct?
What are you talking about?
Whiskey.
Whiskey without
Whiskey.
no,
Whiskey.
with-
Oh, correct. Yeah. Because
it's
in
not-
Did
Scotland.
you not listen to the letters he actually spelled?
No.
He's
No,
already done
because
it.
he says, then he's like,
Well, that was a good
SK
episode, folks.
He goes SKI, and I'm like, well, no, it says
SKI.
ZAKI.
Why?
Correct, because that's how Scotland spells it without the E.
Just wanted
Only
to make sure.
Americans spell
Just wanted
it.
to see if they
Yeah.
said, hey, we're going to steal that too.
Which is so
Yeah.
funny because normally it's the English that add the letters.
Last time we said this, you said
Sorry.
usually the Americans take out a few letters, which
So-
is true, by the way.
So okay, so you touched on it a little bit just now, where you
Yeah.
said this is an entry level whiskey. So
Oh.
historically, Japanese whiskeys have always seemed to be very expensive.
There's the next point.
Okay,
What are we talking for price, boys?
45.
Okay.
62.
Interesting. You guys are not so far off. 65.
Ooh.
Oh wow.
That was a
65.
lucky guess on my part.
Yeah.
It is a Japanese. It is higher than the main one because it is a small batch.
Does
So-
the
65.
importing of it cause that higher
Oh,
price?
I'm
or
sure
is
that's.
that what they?
I'm sure
okay.
that has something to do with it.
Okay.
But
Sure.
so I guess qualify the entry level then, because to me, like when you said entry level, I thought that meant as in this was the entry level.
What I
one
meant
to
by
get
that
into.
was an introduction to Japanese whiskeys,
Oh, okay.
an entry level to trying Japanese whiskeys.
Hmm.
I mean, I would absolutely say, you know, if obviously this is probably, I mean, I've had tasters before, I guess, of Japanese whiskey.
Yeah,
but
you've had
like,
some other ones though.
But I
other
would
brands.
have this in a bar.
Yeah.
I would have this in my bar.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's one of those things that it's, if you didn't know it was Japanese, you'd think it was just a very light, pale Scotch. Maybe low,
Yeah.
very low on the peat and smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Well, very low on the peat anyway. Decent smoke, I guess. But that taste of a Scotch recipe is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, this is really very enjoyable, and I 100% agree with what you're saying. It doesn't have any kind of like real burn to
Like
it.
you get that kind of in the nose burn sometimes from scotches, I feel like, and this one I
I-
didn't get that.
I want to try to open it up a little bit and see if
Ooh.
that helps or hinders.
Sorry again for the people on the podcast.
Oh yeah,
See-
so we're still drinking. That's how good it is.
See, I think this is the kind of Scotch I would put a cube in or two, or the giant cube. I want it to be a little cooler.
I was gonna say, is it
Because it's
because you want
refreshing?
it cooler, or do you want to just drink it slower?
I think it's neither necessarily. Well, I should say I do want it cooler. I don't necessarily need to drink it slower, but and I'm not trying to cool off the burn or whatever, but it does open up a little bit more flavor to it. You got to just put a little splash,
I
just
mean,
a little splash. It needs to be cold though, and the water's kind of warm
So I
too.
noticed it's 46%.
Yes, yeah, 46.
Because it's definitely got a kick to it.
Right,
Yes.
I think
Yeah,
it's
it
still
does.
got some burn to it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying also that little bit of water or cube helps it. I think that makes it more of a refreshing summer kind of Scotch. Excuse me, Japanese whiskey as well, because it cools it down a little bit. You
Yeah,
get a
yeah.
little bit more refreshment out
I
of
don't
it.
know if I like the water.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it because it's warm?
But so how much did you
Maybe.
put in? Because it's so
Just a
funny.
few drops, just like
Yeah.
a little
Okay,
bit.
because it is funny. What the one that Lon and I did go to, it's like they're doing like a little pipette. Little pipette of water.
Yeah.
Little eyedropper.
Little
Yes.
pipette. I remember Pipette. She was wonderful, gal.
She was my pipette.
She was.
No, stop
I'm
my
sorry,
pipette.
listeners.
Anyway.
I'm sorry.
We're going off the rails.
He's the king of dad jokes,
So I guess we could then start discussing this film that we watched.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
There's that thing. We could give it our.
Tokyo Gore
Tokyo Gore
Police.
Normally I have a printed out sheets, but
He's winging it.
I forgot. So
You want me
normally,
to give the directors and stuff? Is that what you were looking for?
That's what I was going to give.
All right,
Oh.
I've got that.
This is
So-
a game where we should probably have an HDMI output.
Right.
I believe it was.
And a big screen there, maybe, or another one of those. Well, that's too small.
Well, but again, we can stick it in the third camera.
You could stick
You
it.
can stick it wherever you want.
I could.
Yeah, right,
So-
and switch between.
Yes.
Yeah. This is directed by
They have butchered it.
Yoshihiro Nisushimura.
And that's why I didn't read it out.
Shimura. Shimura?
You
Yes.
say Shamira, I say Shamira.
Nishimura.
Yeah, Yoshimura.
Nishimura. And starring, of course, Ihi Shina.
Who was, of course, in Audition.
So
Audition.
that took me a hot minute
Okay.
watching it. Like when it first started off, I'm looking at it, I'm going, the hell have I seen her before? And then I think it was, I can't remember, it was a good couple minutes into a scene, and all of a sudden she's staring, like kind of just glazed over, staring. I'm like, oh, is that the girl from Audition? That was like the immediately
Well,
at that point.
and it is funny because it's like, well, I guess we should do our
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yes,
yeah,
yes,
sorry.
yes.
let's do about barrels first.
Okay.
Barrels, it's funny. I'm like doing it either side of the microphone.
Because you want to hug it. Hug the mic.
Hug, hug, hug.
Glug, glug, glug.
All right, you ready?
I think so. I'm going to
I
be
think
pissed
so.
if I did this reverse again.
3,
I did the-
2, 1.
Bam!
Dong.
Son of a bitch.
All right, what'd you give it, Logan?
2.5.
2.5.
3.2.
4.1.
Wow. Okay.
Dude, there's a reason I recommended this movie.
I figured.
Now, it's an acquired taste, I think, because this is Japanese schlock.
Yep.
It's Tokyo Gore Police. Don't worry about the storyline. Don't worry about the characters being too weird for you.
No.
There's some fucked up shit in this movie.
Yes.
And they show everything.
So I did
Love
not dislike this movie. I gave it a 2.5 mostly because of, I'm sure, I don't even know what was the budget on this thing.
Budget. It was a budget.
I think the budget was I might get this around the wrong way. I think the budget on this one was 2.2 million.
Okay.
And the only thing I saw back in what the box office was 80,000.
Okay. So I didn't hate the movie. I liked it. It actually was enjoyable. It was entertaining. It just, the one thing that caught my attention was you could kind of tell when a bloody scene was going to happen. If you can guess
yeah.
how I would know that.
Because the music?
No. Most of the scenes that were bloody, they tried to, you could tell there was like tarps hanging. If you think about it. And I'm like, why does everything that seems to be a bloody scene have tarps all around? Like, you know. So it was little things like that I'm like, I know. To be honest, I thought it was probably a lower budget than that, but not because of, you know, the effects and things like that. But, you know, I've seen Iron Man, you know, Tetsuo Iron Man.
Yeah, but that was more of an
and
art
stuff like
film.
that. Yeah, but that's what it kind of reminded me of, is that I felt like they were kind of going along those same lines.
Yeah.
I did notice a lot of references, or it felt like a lot of references to horror movies. Sort of like
Right.
at the very beginning, the chainsaw, that was very TCM to me. And then when it attaches to his hand, I'm going, okay, Evil Dead.
Okay,
So,
all right,
You know, there's
all
little
right.
things like
But-
that I was like, all right.
But I will say that anytime anybody uses a chainsaw in a horror movie, you're going to think of TCM.
Well,
Right.
but he was like literally dancing around with it. And I
Okay,
mean, it
okay.
almost looked exactly like the scene where, you know, Gunnar Hansen's spinning
Sure,
around at the end.
sure.
Yeah, so that
I-
kind
I
of
won't
caught me.
deny it. I won't
But-
deny it.
So that grabbed my attention in a good way. Like
Okay.
I was like, oh, okay. So they're,
Okay.
I'm assuming that was something in there, but
So for me, like I love the movie.
yeah, me too.
I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it from start to end. The reason why I only gave it a 3.2, I think.
Yeah.
3.2.
Anyone,
Yes,
anyone?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It is primarily because of the lack of any kind of sensible story, or I thought the acting was dreadful.
Yep.
Isn't
that wonderful?
oh,
Now we got to finish it. Once that touches this floor,
yep.
fuck.
Oh, I don't even know where it's at.
It's under my feet.
We'll get it later.
We'll worry about it later.
Yeah.
We'll get
But
it
so
later,
so
Keep
in
drinking.
other words, I think it is one of these things where it's like, you know, in terms of my rating, as I said, it's like I just can't totally separate out a lot of the other things that I would normally rate a movie on.
okay.
But again, like this is probably the third or fourth time I've seen it.
Wow.
And you know, there's still just so many classic scenes.
Yes.
That are
Yes.
just so amazingly over the top.
Yes.
That, you know, and I know you said it just now. It's like you can't go into this movie thinking that you're going to see, well, clearly not Shakespeare.
Because you're not going to see that.
But I mean, like even a story that I mean, there is such a loose story in this.
And the story that was there wasn't really good.
No, not really.
But who gives a shit?
So like the synopsis basically is Raiku.
Yeah,
No.
Raiku. Well, Raiku, I think her name is. Yeah.
Her dad.
Ruka.
Ruka.
Like Veruca salt.
As in Veruca?
Right,
Yes.
as in Veruca salt, but without the salt or the V.
So like, so one thing I should say, because talking about like, movies that there's lots of similarities. The big one is RoboCop.
Yes.
That is definitely one of the big references. Yes.
Because the whole point is Tokyo is obviously some future state, and Tokyo's police force has been privatized, and
Just like
RoboCop.
RoboCop.
Just like RoboCop. Ruku's and very much
Ruka?
like Ruka. Sorry, Veruca. Whatever.
You're like mixing Ruka.
I'm correcting you like I'm actually saying it right. I have no idea.
So like very much like RoboCop. Obviously, at the end of the day, what you really find just in RoboCop is OCP. It's not. What's the acronym for the police force?
I think it's the TCP. Actually,
TCP.
I do think it is.
Tokyo Gore Police.
No.
Correct.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the Gore. Privatized, well, you keep talking.
Anyway,
I'll find it.
so the point is, it's like, and just like with RoboCop, ultimately what you find is obviously there's corruption there, and the reason why the city kind of decided to switch over to a privatized police force is all about money, and Ruka's. Oh my God, you now make me conscious about how to say her name. I'm going to say Ruka.
Yeah.
Ruka's dad was opposing the switch over to privatization, and so the police chief
They don't say.
had him shot.
Because he can.
Right, and so the reason why I say that is because that right there is the story. It's
Well, yeah. I mean, because it goes into the whole thing about.
That's how
Ruka's-
it starts off, right?
Right,
I
right.
mean, they go for the gore right at the very beginning.
They don't hold
which I
it
find
back.
funny because every time the dad gets his head blown off, it's always like kind of different. Like the beginning, it looks
Yeah.
like somebody shot a cannon at the back of his head.
Right. Right.
But-
And they did. They probably shot that probably about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
But the point of that is, in relation to RoboCop, it was a story about the corruption and what would happen if the police were independently funded. And they go a little deeper into the story by saying how Ruka's dad was a hero to her, and then she finds out he was killed by spoilers, by the way.
Yes.
I don't know if it matters for
Yeah,
this,
we
but
know.
was shot by the chief of police, and then you find out later that the chief of police was shot by somebody who was forcing. So everybody was forcing somebody
his-
else
his
to
son?
do something. No, because his son was standing behind Veruca when she was a child.
okay.
So he got to see his dad killed, just like Veruca. He's the one who was the main engineer.
Right,
The
and-
son grew up to be the main engineer.
And so here's the other key, and again, here's the other similarity, is part of the design, part of the thought was they wanted to create these basically super cops, again, just like RoboCop, with the idea that they have this very special power that wherever they get wounded, it's a stupid
well,
power.
but
It's a
the,
cool.
the
it's
cops don't have that power.
No, but the engineers.
The engineers, the bad
Yeah,
guys.
so we should probably
the ones
say
that they're
that.
trying to eliminate.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Well, so what I was saying is, so the engineers have this weird power, which is great for the purpose of this movie,
Yes.
but it's really kind of a stupid power.
It's ridiculous.
Which is basically
Isn't that wonderful?
wherever they get hurt or damaged in some way, that wound becomes a weapon.
Very unique and very weird, and not necessarily a good weapon.
Yeah. Very interesting weapons.
And what's even more weird is the fact that how a lot of these engineers start out is, and this is the part that I thought this was the police guys. Yeah, it was his son that ultimately kind of developed
Started the engineers,
and so he would kill people and then resurrect them by putting this key into them.
Tumor that was shaped like a key. How convenient
Right.
that it's shaped like a key. But yeah,
I thought that part was kind of interesting.
Yeah,
though. I liked
and he had
that. That
lots
was
of them.
that was a pretty cool. Yeah. I just thought that was an interesting. That seemed very Lynchian to me.
It was very odd.
I get that.
Not so much
I get that.
Lynchian in the fact that it was just
Chronobergian.
yeah. I guess we'll go that route.
Chronobergian.
Way
Yeah.
more Cronenberg.
Yeah.
Sure.
Way
Yep.
more Cronenberg.
Because
So-
Cronenberg's all about the fetish piece.
Just to lean into the whole RoboCop thing, there was even a scene where the cop car came through a pile of body parts and
Yes.
smashed them everywhere, just like the bad guy, except he was more liquefied. But the point is that they were playing more homage. It was obviously intentional that they
Yeah.
wanted this to look or feel like RoboCop,
And that was actually also
and other movies, by the way.
And that was also another perfect case of a scene happening for no other reason
Yes.
other than showing gore.
Because they wanted to run a car through a body. So
Because in reality, the car could have just as easily driven around.
Right.
And it's in the middle of the damn street on top of that.
And honestly, they did no preface shot for that to explain why there was a pile of body parts in the middle of the road anyway.
So from that, I deduced, because I sat there and just really got deeply into this movie. No, I assumed that was the people that were being rounded up and killed earlier because of them just saying find every engineer and kill them.
There's a lot of this movie that left it open for people's speculation like
Sure.
that,
'Cause,
or
who
for
knows
you
if
to
any of
fill
those
in the
people were
blanks.
engineers.
Well, because the
Which
other
is okay.
So the other key is
Pun intended.
and this obviously really is probably a huge major spoiler, is ultimately Raka, whatever the fucking name is. Roku
Ruka.
Gets killed and resurrected by the engineer. But somehow she manages to fight back and use the abilities that she's been given because of that to actually kill the engineers.
And honestly, I don't think anybody had to die before they brought him back. He brought back people while they were still alive on the brink of dying.
Yeah.
So like
Correct.
the one cop that went to that sleazy bar, which we've got to talk about. Went to the sleazy bar, and the things you saw in that
Oh my
sleazy
God.
bar was just... But before we do that,
I have nicknames.
the whole point of that was he was about to die because they severed off his wiener schnitzel, they severed a leg, they tore off an arm. He was pretty much just bleeding out and looking at him. That's when the guy came up to him with the key. And all you have to do is, apparently, you tap the forearm,
And it just
and a keyhole
opens
opens up. Magically opens up, and you're like,
Yes.
didn't know we all had that power. But that's how he made
We
everybody.
do in Japan.
Yep, apparently. So did you want to talk about that bar? Did everybody get to see the bar part? Uh-oh.
Oh yes, I
Uh-oh.
saw it. Wow, we're dinging. It's your,
Wow, let me hit
your
that
laptop
mute.
there. So that scene, that felt like, I don't want to say it was out of place, but it just seemed like it went on a little longer than it needed to.
They wanted to show some weird shit.
Sure.
Yeah.
The funny
They
thing
took
is
that opportunity.
The feeling I got from that was kind of along the lines of drawing a blank on the damn movie. We had them
Like
here.
a
Sallow?
No,
like
the
a
guys we
Tokyo-
had here.
like a
Oh,
the movie we watched
I feel
here?
so bad. Yes. Hold
Experiment
on.
53?
No, other ones.
Well, we've only seen Jaws and
No. You mean as in the people that we had? No.
they're from around here.
Pig.
Pig.
Yes.
High on the
cow.
Hog.
High on the Hog. Yes.
Oh, High on the Hog.
I got High on the Hog. Jeez, I couldn't. It's been so
Oh,
long since I
yeah.
watched it. So, no, yeah, I got
Yeah,
like
yeah.
High on the Hog vibes from it. But
I did not.
I know, but
I
it just reminded me for some reason, probably because of that, and I don't. Actually, they probably were. Were they come out around the same time? No, I think.
No.
But anyway,
No,
but
that
yeah,
was 2008. I think.
watching that. So my question about that scene,
Yeah.
the female, did she have teeth on her boobs?
Yeah.
So because that was like, then I started thinking of like nicknames. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
teeth tits.
Yeah,
Kinda
that
came to
wouldn't be
mind.
bad. That's good. I like that one.
Yeah, I thought.
But
I couldn't tell if they were stitches
she
or
was-
teeth. It looked like
Oh,
really
really?
thick
They were
stitches.
teeth.
Were
They were
okay.
teeth, yeah.
So I was
So-
waiting for those to open up.
I
and start
was
going
too.
to town.
I was disappointed.
But then she eventually became Crocodile Crotch.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Which was freaking awesome.
she was.
And the
they
police-
called her Gator Girl, but
Yeah.
I like Crocodile.
Oh, did they?
Crotch
Okay.
better.
Yeah.
I like Crocodile.
These are just
Crotch.
my nicknames.
Yeah, no,
And
I was
then
with
I
you.
eventually got to.
She was my favorite,
Dick
by the
Dart.
way.
Yeah. She was awesome.
Yeah.
Dick Dart?
Dick Dart.
Oh, Dick Dart was good.
So that's my nicknames for those guys throughout the rest of the movie.
Well, and it was funny. So it's like, and I guess what else would you do? But like, you know, the guy gets his dick cut off, and bitten off.
Yeah.
By the gator.
Before she became Gator Girl.
Oh, that's right. No, she
was just.
Oh, she was just
teeth tits at that time.
That's right. So she was going down on him, right?
Correct.
Yes.
And just.
And then
just bit it off.
the main engineer showed up, and then that's when she turned and bit the sausage.
But so the point is, so obviously that was the damaged, wounded part of him.
Yep.
And so when he turned, that became the weapon.
A rather large weapon, we'll say.
Large weapon that
It got bigger.
Yeah.
Yes.
It got
I'm
bigger.
sure he was happy with that.
Yeah.
That had projectiles coming out of it.
Yeah.
Yes. I couldn't tell. Were they darts? Were they like what the engineer was throwing at
It seemed
Ruka?
a little bit globular. It seemed a little bit like he was shooting tumor-shaped or things.
Or was that seminal fluid?
Tumor-shaped like
they
something.
They could have had, toxic seminal fluid.
Yeah.
It could have done. It could have like ate right through them.
Yeah.
I think you were they were leaving imagination to play into that, I think. Yes, which it's doing it for you.
Yeah.
It was cooking your imagination.
It was fun to like see some of that stuff because they got you in with the they're not going to, and then they did, and then you're like, oh, they did, and then you're like, they're still going with it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also the classic one is it's most of the kills. You don't have that much blood in your body.
No.
That's a trait that all good Tokyo horror movies have.
Horror, yeah.
Is the showers of blood.
And it always goes up.
And out.
Diagonally.
In a spray, like it's a car wash or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that leads me into something that's towards the end of the film, so I may hold on to that.
Okay.
But
let's
come back to that,
finish the thoughts on the bar because let's explain what happens here. They go into a bar. One of the cops had a rough night, apparently. Just came into an empty warehouse and was like, nobody's here, and there's no chairs, tables, desks, nothing. But he goes, time to kick off his shoes. Have a little fun. He goes to this, I don't know, S&M bar?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he's
I could
first
use
met
some
by...
speed, I believe, was what he
Yes.
said.
That's it, because he drew on his arm. He drew the needle on his
needle,
arm. He's
it's
like,
like,
oh, that feels so good.
But what was I supposed to do?
I think that was hilarious. It was
That
comedy.
was funny.
I thought that was funny as hell. But he goes in the bar and he's led by I'm going to say androgynous, latexed, gigantically tall person.
Right.
With a weird, latexed up with weird shaped, like, I don't know, torpedoes or something on the head.
I couldn't tell. They looked like fans initially, but then
I
it's
thought
just
they were like-
inflated fans.
Yeah, I thought they were like jet engines.
Yeah,
Or something.
yeah.
Walks him through like, oh, come late, and walks through a sea of freaks, right? And we're talking tattoos and piercings would have been normal for these people.
Mm-hmm.
There were body mods. There were just, I mean, it was weird beyond control. And leads them up to a corner, and they decide they're going to put on a little show. I'm not sure the point of the show. Doesn't matter what the point of the show was. But the first one they showed, you remember what the first thing was?
The first one,
I'm trying to remember.
was her.
It was somewhat normal, all things
Yeah.
considered.
I'm trying to remember.
Anyone?
I don't remember.
Well, do you remember any of them?
Yeah.
I
remember.
I'm trying to get
one
to the
name.
last one.
I know which one you're going to,
because
but I'm
they
trying to.
each started to get a little bit more.
Yeah, they did start to
freaky.
get a little, and they were like revealing them. So I took
Yeah,
that,
big
that
curtain
part
drop.
as like, were they bidding for them? It was like a rental type
Like,
thing.
Who the hell knows?
Yeah, because like he was like
Who the
that.
It was
hell
also
no,
there was
you
no
know.
money exchange, right?
They held up tickets, so I'm thinking it worked on credits. It's the future, so I think they were just like send number 6 because they all had like.
Oh,
they were markered on the ass. So
right. Which one
Yeah.
do you want?
what
Yeah,
number?
yeah.
And you'd say, oh, I want. And of course,
So
one was
maybe
69.
like, as they
Yeah.
left, they would just give their token back, and then that's how they paid. I don't know.
Could be. But honestly, who cares how they worked
Yeah.
it? The point is,
Point is, we got some freaky shit going on in there.
so it was so freaking disturbing that they thought they weren't freaking disturbing enough, and the final act came out, which, when the curtain dropped, it was literally just a torso that was flayed out like a hot pocket,
Yeah.
and legs
Legs.
spread with a lotus flower. Was it a lotus flower?
I
in
was
the
thinking
front?
it was just a giant vagine with a
No,
giant
no, it was a
clitoris.
flower. It was a flower covering.
I thought it was a big vagina as well.
Oh,
Oh,
my
I think
goodness.
that was their intention, but they probably made it look like a lotus flower.
No head, no arms, but there were legs and this floral-shaped thing.
And it was breathing, mind you.
It was breathing, and it was on IV to
Yep.
keep it alive because it was just
And it-
literally
It's the body.
just not even a full body, just the front of a
Right.
body.
Yes. You see the
skin
heart beating,
stretched
yeah.
out. You could see the heart beating.
And it was, and the people oohed and awed as
but
they
they
pulled the
at
curtain
first it
back.
was like gasp, and then all of a sudden they're like woo,
Well, it's
and
when
then
they sort of realized that it was still breathing. And
right,
Yeah.
and then what did the audience get to enjoy? Who wants to say
I'll
it?
call it a golden shower. But
Golden shower is
Yes.
the best way to say it.
There was some volume there.
Oh my God!
And the funny thing I started thinking was, how did it move from side to side?
I think
They
it
should
was.
have had
I
the
think
people-
someone
I think it was
shot
able to angle its flower.
Yeah,
I think is what
that's
that was.
just.
And everyone was like, ah.
It doesn't matter
Yeah,
because
and people were
everybody was
just having
drinking it in.
Ugh, God, that makes me gag. No,
They were drinking it. But
we won't talk about it actually kind of matched.
see
Oh.
now, see you didn't.
No,
have
that
to,
person
you
was
didn't- you
very,
didn't need to-
very hydrated,
you
I'm gonna
didn't-
say.
You didn't need to
Well, that's
bring
what I
that.
mean, it's very
That's
pale.
not where you needed to go with it. But they wanted shock value.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
That's what they got.
Yeah.
They shocked the shit out of everybody, including me, every time I saw it.
But I mean, it really is one of these. To what Logan said, I mean, I think it's one of these things where, they create this film, they probably storyboarded it out and said, okay, we have 54 minutes worth of content here.
Yeah.
Like, we need to kind of bolster this up a bit.
Sure.
And how can we do it? Because it didn't really play to anything in the story other than in the future things are kind of fucked up.
I think that was part of the original storyline, and I think that was well thought out, and the whole movie was well planned out because it only it was shot in 2 weeks.
Damn.
Yes, I read that as well.
So simply because it was shot in 2 weeks, you got to plan those special effects.
Yeah,
building
that was
those
a lot of
props,
special
Yeah, yeah.
effects.
building a, I don't know what the hell it was thing with the thing and the guy and the stuff. That you had to plan that out, man.
So another RoboCop callback. Truly, one of my favorite parts in the movie were all of the ads.
Okay,
Like the cutting ad.
right.
It's like that's just
It's
one of these where
hilarious.
there's-
Well,
we always talk about
dare I
like
say that?
how many Mel Gibson. Not sorry. Oh my God.
Gib Melson.
No, Blazing Saddles.
Mel Brooks.
Mel
Oh my
Brooks.
God.
Oh.
How many Mel Brooks movies just couldn't be made nowadays because they're
Yeah.
considered so inappropriate? The fact that you have a movie that
Yeah.
is talking about like, oh, if you want to cut yourself, these are the tools that you want to use because they just do such a good job, and it's just it's
Yep.
like
And they were cute.
Oh my
and
God,
they were
it was
dainty,
so freaking
and
cool.
they were cool. You got 3 different color choices, and they
well,
were.
and you saw the Ruka. It's like she had cuts.
Yes, she did.
all down her arm.
Yep. Because that's actually also a common thing. Because even in Vampire Girl versus Frankenstein Girl, one of my favorite Japanese movies ever, they did that too. They did that same sort of joke. They did the whole cutter thing. In fact, that was their own little group in high school. They did something very similar to when they had an African American portrayed in this one by the pile of bodies before the car ran through. There was one African American that was portrayed as like literally from Africa, and it was today in today's standards so racist. You look at it and you're like, wow,
Right.
Japan's going to get canceled. But they did that in Vampire Girl versus Frankenstein Girl. They did that in this one. They weren't afraid of it. It didn't matter because in this genre in that country, they didn't have to pull anything back. They made
Yeah.
fun of everything.
Yeah.
Which was, by the way, I think, also very RoboCop-ish because they did that stuff in RoboCop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think
I'd
it
buy
was
that for $1.
also they did exactly, and they also did sort of the thing I think from the Warriors, where the announcer they had an announcer saying
Yep.
what was going
Yep.
on throughout the movie, and oh my, the cops from from cute war blonded Asian girl that was just bubbly.
Is that what you got High in the Hog from? And I was like, because I don't see High in the Hog.
That
at
sort
all.
of, that was part of it, but it was also that scene with because that scene felt out of place in a sense because
Okay.
it's like I thought they were just going to walk with him to the back room, but instead they stopped and stayed there. I was like, okay, where's this going? And then I thought, well, maybe he's getting ready or something. Like they were going to cut to him.
But I thought, in other words, it's like with High and the Hog, they had the DJ.
Yes.
That kept
Right.
on, that kept on cutting in, which obviously we know because we spoke to the producer and writer, that was added as a secondary thing to try and give it a little bit more.
But I think they also
Flavor.
got that from Warriors.
They
Sure.
could have.
Because
yeah.
that was a thing back
Yes.
in that movie. It was the whole thing with, announcing where the bad guys are on the radio DJ. Knew everything somehow.
Can you dig it?
Right.
Well,
Can you
and also I
dig
think it is one of these things where, the benefit of having a narrator is it does
Narrator?
a narrator
Wow.
as opposed to
Narrator.
narrator. Sorry,
Narrator?
narrator.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Just got to poke fun at that one.
It is obviously it speeds up the what's the word I'm looking
The
for?
storyline.
Yeah, it's storyline.
It
I was
speeds
trying
up
to
the
thi-
understanding.
I was trying to think of a nicer word of storyline, but
Well,
storyline works as well.
Because
Americans.
it gives you, it gives everybody an understanding for those leaps in logic.
Right.
Right? So you're like, well, what just happened there? Why are the cops running from this? And then you hear the narrator say, or the narrator say, oh, the cops just got bested, but we can't take that. We're going to fight back. So she explained that scene and set up the next one.
Well, right, exactly. Because even like at the very beginning, where she's the one that basically you see the scene where there's this big celebration and Roku's dad is up on the stage and whatever, and she basically kind of lays out what's happening,
Right.
and that enables you in kind of one scene
Yep.
to understand. Tokyo's police is privatized and his,
Well, that
his-
and they
his
cram it down
is
your throat every 10 minutes with a
They do.
commercial. So
Yes.
They do.
Which, to be honest, I think that was part of them showing the propaganda of.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
This movie was obviously for shock, but they did a lot of social commentary.
Yeah.
They did a lot of social commentary on the police force and governmentization and privatization of government entities and the whole cutting scene and violence in general and science and where that was going and,
Sure.
Cronenberging people and all that crap. I mean, it had a lot to say, but it said it in a fun way. It didn't have a lot of super important things to say, but it was just a
It was
damn
fun.
fun movie.
It was fun.
If you want to watch a movie that you're just there to see some gore and see some silliness,
Absolutely.
This is the movie.
And I will say, so one kind of detriment to the way I saw it in the most recent time is I saw it on my tablet that is a 10-inch tablet. I would love to see this on a big
oh yeah,
screen. It's like I'd love to show it on
yeah.
this screen.
I bet you I'd see a lot more of that tarp setting up
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I'd be able to see that kind of stuff a little bit better. But
But it's because
Yeah.
because I think it is, how you talk about things like the new Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
Obviously not J horror.
thanks for explaining that.
Thank you. But that's a movie I want to see in the theater. As much as I don't necessarily
Because
need to
that's
see
a
Harrison
big
Ford
dynamic action
old.
movie.
Sure.
But exactly. It's a spectacle.
Right.
And this, even though it's not a big action movie, the over-the-topness of this movie, I would love to see on a big screen.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that'd just be, it would
I-
be
I
bloody
would-
cool.
I think it would be
I see
even
what you did
better
there.
if they had 4D. If you think about
So
it.
you got covered in blood.
So no, it would just be sprays of water or something. But if in one, for me, the best part would be, and I alluded to this earlier about the blood shedding, the bloodshed in general. But they took it to that next level, and he used the blood as fucking turbo rockets.
That was
that to me
hilarious.
was the
I
icing on the
think-
cake. I'm like, all right, now this is.
See, they were making fun of themselves.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
but it was
Because they're
but
like, oh, there's so
it
much blood in
works.
here.
Because you see, he's bleeding out of his legs, then all of a sudden it's just whoosh.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Think about even the guy at the end who had the gun, the cops scientist, who had a gun that shot fists,
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god.
right? And he's shooting them, and all the fists are coming at you, and they're going like this, going. Whoa!
Yes.
So
And
you're like, that's hilarious.
And I had a
how
nickname
did you
for that too.
Okay, go ahead.
Fistal.
It's a fist.
Oh, that's actually pretty good.
See?
Yeah.
So,
Pistol.
It's a 12
But-
pistol.
Yeah.
How did they stop it?
With just a
A thread.
string.
It was a thread of flesh because
Thread,
it was
yeah.
what's her name's tongue of the lizard hand. She had a alligator hand or whatever with the tongue. But they even showed it the way it went around. It's
it's
and back at you, and you're like, that's ridiculous. So they said, you know what? We'll show you it again.
Yeah.
Look, here's the
5
next
other
one.
times.
Wait, let's show you 5 more fucking times.
So and obviously as the way bigger J horror aficionado than we are, obviously this was not the first one.
Of the gore, that sort of what they call
Right.
the Tokyo Shock.
Right.
Tokyo Shock is